Dr. Luna Blackwood's hands trembled as she pressed the phone against her ear, the German shepherd's labored breathing filling the silence between rings. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandages she'd wrapped around the massive dog's chest, and his golden eyes, so strikingly human-like, never left her face. "Come on, pick up!" she whispered, scrolling frantically through her emergency contact list. It was 3:47 a.m., and Riverside Animal Emergency was her last hope. The dog had appeared at her clinic's back door 20 minutes ago, whimpering and barely conscious, with what looked like claw marks raked across his ribs. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a deep, gravelly voice answered, but it wasn't the cheerful receptionist she expected. "Who is this?" The voice was sharp, commanding, with an undertone that made every nerve in Luna's body stand at attention. I'm sorry, I think I have the wrong number. I was trying to reach Riverside Emergency Vet. "You didn't dial wrong." His tone softened slightly but remained intense. "What's your emergency?" Luna glanced down at the injured dog, whose breathing had become more shallow. She didn't have time to argue about wrong numbers. "I have a severely injured German shepherd. Deep lacerations across the chest and abdomen. He's going into shock, and I need surgical assistance immediately." Silence stretched for several heartbeats. When the man spoke again, his voice carried a strange urgency. "Where are you?" "Moonrise Veterinary Clinic on Cedar Street." "Listen, I really need to get this dog to a proper emergency facility. Don't move him." The command was so firm it made Luna freeze mid-sentence. "I'm sending help. Keep him warm and stable. Whatever you do, do not let anyone else see him." "What? I don't understand." "You will. Help is coming." The line went dead, leaving Luna staring at her phone in bewilderment. She looked down at the dog, who was watching her with those unnervingly intelligent eyes, and felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the October night. "What kind of trouble did you get into, boy?" she murmured, gently stroking his head. His fur was thick and luxurious, more like a wolf's coat than any German shepherd she'd ever treated. Luna had always been comfortable with solitude. At 28, she'd spent the last 3 years building her small-town veterinary practice from nothing, preferring the company of animals to the complicated messiness of human relationships. Her childhood in foster care had taught her to rely on herself, and she'd done just fine with that arrangement. But as she worked to stabilize the mysterious dog, checking his vitals and preparing emergency supplies, an unsettling feeling crept over her. The way he'd appeared at her door as if he knew exactly where to find her, the strange phone call, and those eyes that seemed to hold far too much understanding. She'd just finished setting up an IV line when the dog's head snapped toward the front windows, a low growl rumbling in his chest despite his weakened state. Luna followed his gaze and felt her blood turn to ice. 3 black SUVs had pulled up silently outside her clinic, their headlights off. Men in dark clothing were emerging from the vehicles, moving with military precision across her parking lot. They weren't police, she'd have heard sirens, and they definitely weren't veterinary colleagues. "Oh God," she whispered, her hand instinctively moving to the dog's head. "What did you bring to my door?" The dog's growl deepened, and Luna could have sworn she saw his lips pull back to reveal teeth that seemed larger, sharper than they should be, a sound that was more wolf than dog. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "They found you faster than expected. Back door, now." Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the front windows, she could see the men spreading out around the building, cutting off all obvious escape routes. The wounded dog struggled to his feet despite his injuries, positioning himself between Luna and the front entrance with a protective stance that made her chest tight. "I don't know who you are," she whispered to him, "but I'm not leaving you behind." Another text. "Bring him. Trust me." The back door to her clinic stood slightly ajar, though she was certain she'd locked it. Cool night air drifted through the gap, carrying with it the scent of pine and something wild, something that made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with fear. Luna heard the soft click of the front door handle being tested. In 30 seconds, maybe less, those men would be inside her clinic. She looked down at the injured dog, who was watching her with an expression that somehow conveyed both gratitude and apology. "Okay, boy," she breathed, slipping her arms around his considerable weight. "I hope whoever's out there is on our side." She'd barely made it 3 steps toward the back door when the front windows exploded inward in a shower of glass, and shouts filled the night air. The dog in her arms let out a sound that was definitely not canine, a howl that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building and called to something primal deep in Luna's chest. As she stumbled through the back door into the darkness beyond, Luna Blackwood had no idea that her quiet, carefully controlled life had just ended forever, or that the wounded animal in her arms was about to change everything she thought she knew about the world and about herself. Behind them, she heard heavy boots crunching through glass and a voice shouting, "They're gone! Check the back!" But ahead of her, in the shadows between the trees that bordered her property, golden eyes that matched the injured dogs were watching, waiting. And Luna had the strangest feeling that whoever was out there had been waiting for her for a very long time. If you were Luna, would you trust the mysterious voice who somehow knew exactly what was happening? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens when she meets the owner of those golden eyes watching from the shadows. Luna stumbled through the darkness, the injured dog's weight growing heavier in her arms with each step. Her emergency medical bag bounced against her hip as she navigated between towering pines, their branches creating a canopy so thick that moonlight barely filtered through. This way, the voice emerged from the shadows ahead, deep, commanding, and unmistakably the same one from the phone call. A figure stepped into a patch of silver moonlight, and Luna's breath caught in her throat. The man was tall, easily 6'4", with broad shoulders that filled out a black tactical jacket. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running, and when he turned toward her, she saw eyes that were the exact same golden amber as the dog in her arms. Luna began, but he was already moving toward her with fluid, predatory grace. Caspian Reed. His hands were gentle as he helped support the dog's weight, his fingers briefly brushing against Luna's arms. The contact sent an electric shock through her system that had nothing to do with the adrenaline already coursing through her veins. "And you just saved my brother's life." "Your brother?" Luna stared down at the injured animal, then back up at Caspian's intense gaze. "I don't understand." "You will." He lifted the dog from her arms as if he weighed nothing, cradling him with a tenderness that made Luna's chest tight. "Right now, we need to get him somewhere safe for surgery. Can you handle an operation under less than ideal circumstances?" Behind them, shouts echoed through the night as their pursuers spread out through the woods. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, getting closer. "I can handle anything," Luna said, lifting her chin with the defiance that had gotten her through 16 different foster homes. "But I need proper lighting, sterile conditions. Follow me." Caspian led her deeper into the forest, moving with an uncanny ability to navigate the terrain in near complete darkness. Luna found herself trusting his guidance despite every rational instinct screaming at her to demand explanation. There was something about his presence, commanding yet protective, that made her feel safer than she had any right to feel while fleeing armed men through the wilderness. After what felt like miles, but was probably only a few hundred yards, they emerged into a clearing where a large cabin sat nestled against a rocky outcropping. Warm light glowed from the windows, and Luna could hear the distant sound of running water. "Emergency medical facility," Caspian explained, pushing through the front door. "We've had to become self-sufficient." The interior took Luna's breath away. What looked like a rustic cabin from the outside had been converted into a state-of-the-art medical facility. Surgical lights, monitoring equipment, cabinets full of supplies, everything she could need and more. She started, but Caspian was already laying the injured dog on the surgical table under the bright lights. Questions later, surgery now. His voice carried an urgency that made Luna snap into professional mode. "What do you need?" For the next hour, Luna forgot about mysterious phone calls and armed pursuers. She forgot about the impossibility of finding a full medical facility hidden in the woods. All that mattered was the patient in front of her, cleaning wounds, suturing deep lacerations, monitoring vital signs as she worked to repair the damage. Caspian proved to be an exceptional surgical assistant. His hands were steady, his anticipation of her needs almost supernatural. When she asked for instruments, he had them ready before she finished speaking. When she needed better lighting, he adjusted it without being asked. "You've done this before," Luna murmured, carefully stitching a particularly deep wound across the dog's ribs. "More times than I'd like to count." There was pain in his voice, old grief that made Luna glance up at his face. In the surgical lights, she could see fine lines around his eyes, the kind that came from too much responsibility carried too young. My family, we tend to find trouble. Or trouble finds you, Luna said softly, thinking of the men who'd surrounded her clinic. Their eyes met across the surgical table, and Luna felt that electric connection again, stronger this time, like recognition of something she couldn't name. Caspian's pupils dilated slightly, and she heard his breathing change. Luna. Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer or a promise. Do you believe in fate? Before she could answer, the dog on the table stirred, letting out a soft whine. Luna immediately turned her attention back to her patient, but she could feel Caspian's gaze on her like a physical touch. Vital signs are stabilizing, she reported, checking the monitors. He should make a full recovery, but he needs rest. The lights in the cabin suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. Through the windows, Luna could see flashlight beams sweeping across the clearing. They found us, Caspian growled, and Luna could have sworn the sound was more animal than human. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red shadows. Caspian moved to a weapons cabinet Luna hadn't noticed before, pulling out what looked like military-grade firearms with practiced efficiency. There's a back exit through the medical supply room, he said, his voice taking on that commanding tone again. Take the path marked with white stones. It leads to a safe house 5 miles north. I'm not leaving you, Luna said without thinking, then felt heat rise in her cheeks. She barely knew this man, had no reason to care what happened to him beyond professional medical ethics. Caspian stopped mid-movement, turning to stare at her with an expression of surprise and something deeper, something that made her heart race. Luna, and I'm definitely not leaving my patient. She moved protectively closer to the surgical table where the dog was beginning to wake up, blinking those 2 intelligent golden eyes. So whatever plan you have, it better include all 3 of us. The front door exploded inward in a shower of wood, splinters, and tactical gear. 5 armed men poured through the opening, weapons raised, red laser sights dancing across the walls. Hands where we can see them. The lead man's voice was cold, professional. Dr. Blackwood, step away from the animal. Luna's blood turned to ice. They knew her name. This wasn't random. They'd been specifically looking for her. She began, but Caspian stepped smoothly between her and the gunman, his movement fluid and predatory. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying a dangerous calm that made the hair on Luna's arms stand up. I think you're lost. The lead gunman's confidence wavered slightly. Caspian Reed, we've been looking for you for a long time, and now you found me. Caspian's smile was all teeth, sharp and challenging. I hope you brought enough men. On the surgical table behind them, Luna heard a sound that made her heart stop. The dog was changing, bones shifting, muscles expanding, fur receding. In the space of heartbeats, where an injured German shepherd had been lying, a naked man now sat up, the surgical wounds still fresh across his chest, but healing visibly as she watched. Hello, brother, the man said to Caspian, his voice rough but warm. Thanks for the rescue. Luna's knees nearly buckled. Her rational mind tried to process what she'd just witnessed, tried to find a logical explanation, but the evidence was right in front of her eyes. Shapeshifters, werewolves, the fairy tales were real. Dr. Blackwood, the lead gunman, said, his weapon now trained directly on her chest. You're coming with us. You've seen too much. Like hell she is, Caspian snarled, and Luna watched in shock as his eyes flashed with an inhuman golden light. Her normal life, her quiet, controlled, predictable existence was officially over, and looking at Caspian's protective stance, at the way he'd positioned himself to shield her from danger, Luna realized she might not mind that as much as she should. Move! Caspian's voice cracked like a whip as the emergency lights flickered and died. In the darkness that followed, Luna heard sounds that would haunt her dreams, inhuman snarls, the wet sound of claws on flesh, and screams that cut off abruptly. She pressed herself against the surgical table, her hands instinctively moving to shield Caspian's brother, who was struggling to sit up despite his injuries. Stay down, she whispered to him, but he was already pushing himself upright with supernatural determination. I'm fine, Doc, he said, his voice stronger than it had any right to be. Name's Kane, by the way. Thanks for patching me up. A gunshot rang out, muzzle flash, illuminating the chaos for a split second. Luna saw Caspian moving like liquid shadow, too fast to be human, taking down armed men with brutal efficiency. His eyes blazed golden in the darkness, and she could swear she saw fangs gleaming in the brief flashes of light. "We need to go," Kane said, wrapping a medical blanket around his waist as he slid off the table. "CAs can handle these 5, but they've got backup coming." 5? There are 5 trained soldiers with automatic weapons in there, Luna hissed, grabbing her medical bag. "He can't possibly—" The sounds of fighting stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, Luna heard Caspian's voice, calm and controlled, all clear. "But Kane's right. We have maybe 3 minutes before reinforcements arrive." Luna's hands shook as she followed Kane through the medical supply room toward the back exit. Her mind kept replaying what she'd witnessed. The transformation, the inhuman speed and strength. Everything she thought she knew about the world had just been turned upside down. They emerged into the forest behind the cabin, where Caspian was waiting, not even breathing hard despite having just taken on 5 armed men single-handedly. His clothes were torn, and Luna could see scratches on his arms that were already healing. "This way," he said, taking point as they began moving through the dense undergrowth. "Stay close, stay quiet, and whatever you do, don't run if you see eyes in the dark. They're ours." "They're what now?" Luna stumbled over a root, and Caspian's hand shot out to steady her. Even that brief contact sent warmth racing up her arm. "Pack members," Kane explained quietly. "We've got scouts positioned throughout these woods. They'll cover our retreat." As if summoned by his words, Luna caught glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision, shadows that moved too purposefully to be natural, eyes that reflected the moonlight with an inhuman gleam. Her rational mind wanted to panic, but something deeper, more instinctual, recognized the protective presence surrounding them. "I need you to listen carefully," Caspian said as they navigated a rocky slope. His voice was gentle but urgent. "What you saw back there, what Kane is, what I am, it's real. We're shapeshifters, werewolves, if you prefer the fairy tale terminology. And as of tonight, you're part of this world, whether you want to be or not." Luna's breath came in short gasps, and it wasn't just from the physical exertion of their escape. This is impossible. People don't just change into animals. There has to be a logical explanation. "Luna." Caspian stopped walking and turned to face her, his golden eyes serious in the moonlight. "I know it's hard to accept, but you're a scientist. You believe in evidence, right? What did your eyes tell you back there?" She wanted to argue, to insist that what she'd witnessed was some kind of elaborate hoax or hallucination brought on by stress. But the evidence was undeniable: Kane's transformation, Caspian's inhuman speed and strength, the way her own body seemed to recognize something familiar in their presence. "Okay," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's say I accept that werewolves are real. What does that have to do with me? Why were those men specifically looking for me?" Kane and Caspian exchanged a look that made Luna's stomach clench with anxiety. "That's complicated," Caspian said carefully, "but right now what matters is keeping you safe. There are people, humans, who hunt our kind. They've been tracking Kane and me for weeks, and somehow you got caught in the crossfire." "Because I answered a wrong number." Luna's voice rose with frustration and fear. "Because I tried to save an injured animal." "Because you have a gift," Kane said quietly. "The way you worked on me, I could feel it, Doc. There was something in your touch, something that accelerated my healing. That's not normal, even for us." Luna stared at him in shock. She'd always been good with animals, had always felt a strange connection to her patients that went beyond professional competence, but she'd attributed it to natural talent and dedication, not whatever Kane was suggesting. "You think I'm some kind of supernatural healer?" she asked, trying to keep the hysteria out of her voice. "I think you're more than, Caspian said softly, his gaze intense, "and I think those hunters figured it out before you did." They reached a clearing where several vehicles were hidden beneath camouflage netting. Caspian led her to a black pickup truck while Kane headed toward a motorcycle, moving with fluid grace despite his recent injuries. "Where are we going?" Luna asked as Caspian held the passenger door open for her. "Sanctuary," he said simply. "Our pack's territory. It's protected, warded. You'll be safe there while we figure out our next move." Luna hesitated with one foot on the running board. Getting into that truck meant accepting this new reality, leaving behind everything familiar and predictable about her life. It meant trusting a man she'd known for less than 4 hours, a man who could apparently turn into a wolf. But looking back toward the hidden cabin, where men with guns had been hunting her specifically, Luna realized she didn't have much choice. Her old life was already gone. The question was whether she was brave enough to embrace whatever came next. Luna, Caspian said, his voice gentle, I know this is terrifying. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I swear to you, I will keep you safe. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, I won't let them hurt you. The sincerity in his voice, the protective intensity in his golden eyes made something flutter in Luna's chest that had nothing to do with fear. She'd spent her entire adult life being self-sufficient, not needing anyone. But looking at Caspian, she felt a pull toward him that was both frightening and exhilarating. Okay, she said, climbing into the truck, but I want answers. All of them. Caspian's smile was warm and grateful as he closed her door and jogged around to the driver's side. You'll have them, I promise. As they drove deeper into the forest, following hidden roads that didn't appear on any map, Luna watched the familiar world disappear behind them. Ahead lay something unknown, dangerous, and completely outside her carefully controlled existence. But sitting next to Caspian, feeling the solid strength of his presence and the strange rightness of being beside him, Luna found herself looking forward to the unknown for the first time in her life. Even if it meant discovering that everything she thought she knew about herself and about the world was wrong. Dawn was breaking over the mountains when they finally reached the pack territory. Luna had dozed fitfully during the 3-hour drive, her head falling against the window as exhaustion finally overtook adrenaline. She woke to find Caspian's jacket draped over her shoulders, still warm from his body heat, and carrying his scent, pine leather, and something wild that made her pulse quicken. Welcome to Silverfall, Caspian said softly, not wanting to startle her, fully awake. Luna blinked and sat up, gasping at the view before them. They'd emerged from a tunnel carved through solid rock onto a plateau that looked like something from a fantasy novel. A small town nestled in a valley surrounded by towering peaks with buildings that seemed to grow organically from the landscape itself. Stone and timber structures wound their way up the hillsides, connected by paths and bridges that followed the natural contours of the terrain. It's beautiful, she breathed, temporarily forgetting her fear and confusion. It's home, Caspian said, and she could hear the pride and love in his voice. My great-grandfather founded this settlement in 1892, back when humans first started hunting our kind in organized groups. We've been building it ever since. As they drove through the town's outer perimeter, Luna noticed details that spoke to the unique nature of this community. The streets were wider than normal, as if designed to accommodate something larger than human traffic. Gardens were planted with herbs she recognized from veterinary texts, natural healing plants that would be invaluable for treating injuries. And everywhere she looked, she saw people who moved with that same fluid grace she'd noticed in Caspian and Kane. How many people live here? She asked. About 300, counting the children. Caspian pulled up in front of a large lodge that served as the town's central hub. We're not the only pack in North America, but we're one of the largest. Most werewolves live in smaller family groups scattered throughout rural areas. Kane was waiting for them on the lodge's front porch, looking remarkably healthy for someone who'd undergone emergency surgery just hours earlier. He'd found clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt that emphasized his broad shoulders, and the surgical wounds Luna had so carefully stitched were already faded to thin pink lines. Fast healers, Caspian explained, noticing her amazed stare. One of the benefits of our nature, though what you did for him, the way his injuries responded to your touch, that was something special. Inside the lodge, Luna found herself in a great room with soaring timber beams and a massive stone fireplace where several people were gathered despite the early hour. They all looked up as Caspian entered, and Luna felt the weight of their attention like a physical presence. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Dr. Luna Blackwood, Caspian announced. She saved Kane's life last night, and she's under our protection. An older woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes stepped forward. I'm Isabella Reed, Caspian's mother and the pack's healer. We owe you a debt of gratitude, dear. You're welcome, Luna said automatically, then felt heat rise in her cheeks. I mean, any veterinarian would have done the same thing. Would they? Asked a younger man with Caspian's strong jaw but lighter coloring. Would they have risked their lives to save a stranger? Would they have felt the connection you did? This is my younger brother, Finn, Caspian said with a warning note in his voice. He has a tendency to speak first and think later. Someone has to ask the hard questions, Finn replied, but he smiled at Luna with genuine warmth. What I mean is, we don't think what happened last night was a coincidence. The fact that Kane ended up at your clinic specifically, that you were able to help him the way you did. Finn, Isabella said sharply, let the girl get her bearings before you start interrogating her about destiny. Luna looked around the room at the faces, watching her curious, hopeful, protective. She'd never been part of a family, had always been on the outside looking in during her years in foster care. But here, surrounded by these people who'd welcomed her without question, simply because Caspian had asked them to, she felt something she'd never experienced before, belonging. What kind of connection? She asked quietly. What does it mean? Caspian moved closer to her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. In our world, there are bonds that go beyond the physical. Mates recognize each other. Healers are drawn to those who need them most. What you felt when you were treating Kane, did it seem familiar, like you'd done it before, even though you knew you hadn't? Luna thought about the strange certainty she'd felt during the surgery, the way her hands had seemed to know exactly what to do. Yes, she admitted, it was like I was remembering something I'd never learned because you were born to it. Isabella said gently, there are humans with gifts, dear, rare ones, usually from bloodlines that mixed with ours generations ago. You have the healing touch, the ability to channel life force and accelerate natural recovery. It's why Kane healed so quickly, and it's why the hunters were tracking you. Hunters? Luna's blood chilled at the confirmation of her worst fears. Sit down, Caspian said, guiding her to a comfortable chair by the fireplace. There's something you need to know about the man who's been hunting my family. Kane joined them, his expression grim. His name is Dr. Victor Crane. He used to be a respected researcher, genetics, evolutionary biology, brilliant mind. But somewhere along the way, he became obsessed with our kind. Obsessed how? Luna asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. He believes werewolves are the next stage of human evolution, Caspian said, his voice tight with anger. And he thinks he can replicate our abilities through scientific methods. For the past 5 years, he's been capturing our people, experimenting on them. Isabella's face was etched with old pain. We lost 3 pack members to his research facility before we learned to recognize the signs of his hunters. They target isolated wolves first, then anyone with healing abilities who might be able to help them. That's why he wants you, Finn added quietly. A human healer would be invaluable to his research. He could study how your abilities work without the complications of our shifting nature. Luna felt sick. The idea of being reduced to a lab specimen, of her gift being used to hurt the very people she was meant to help, made her stomach turn. How do you know so much about him? Because he sent us this 3 days ago, Caspian said, pulling out his phone and showing her a video message. The man on the screen was perhaps 50, distinguished looking with silver hair and intelligent dark eyes. He wore an expensive suit and spoke with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Caspian Reed, the man said, his voice cultured and smooth. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The healer who's been interfering with my operation. I'm prepared to offer a trade, her willing cooperation with my research in exchange for your pack's safety. You have 72 hours to consider my proposal. Luna's hands shook as she watched the recording. There was something chilling about Victor Crane's casual demeanor, the way he spoke about her, as if she were a commodity to be traded. When was this sent? She asked. 3 days ago, Caspian replied grimly, which means we have less than 24 hours before his deadline. And if I don't go? Luna asked, though she already suspected the answer. He'll come for us, Kane said simply. All of us. He has resources, connections in the government. He could make our lives very difficult. Luna stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked the peaceful valley town. Children were playing in a park visible from the lodge, their laughter carrying on the morning breeze. Families were going about their daily routines, unaware that their entire way of life was under threat. "He's counting on your compassion," Caspian said, moving to stand behind her. She could feel the heat of his body, the barely contained power that radiated from him. "He knows you won't want innocent people to suffer because of you." "But going with him would be suicide," Luna said quietly. "Once he has what he wants from me, I'm disposable." "Not just you," Isabella said softly. "A man like that, his appetite will only grow. Today it's one healer. Tomorrow it's our children, our elders, anyone he thinks might further his research." Luna turned to face Caspian, and the intensity in his golden eyes made her breath catch. "There's something else, isn't there? Something you haven't told me." He hesitated, running a hand through his dark hair. "Victor Crane isn't just interested in your healing abilities. According to our sources, he believes you're the key to something much bigger. Something about bloodline compatibility and enhanced supernatural traits." "What does that mean?" "It means," Finn said bluntly, "he thinks you might be able to create super werewolves. Enhanced shapeshifters with abilities far beyond anything we've ever seen." The room fell silent, except for the crackling of the fire. Luna felt the weight of everyone's attention, the knowledge that her decision would affect not just her own life, but the lives of everyone in this community that had welcomed her so readily. "I need some air," she said finally. "I'll come with you," Caspian offered, but Luna shook her head. "I need to think, alone." She walked out onto the lodge's wraparound porch, breathing deeply of the mountain air. The morning sun was warm on her face, and she could hear the sounds of a community waking up, children laughing, adults calling greetings to each other, the ordinary sounds of people living their lives. These people had become her responsibility, whether she'd asked for it or not. Her gift, her bloodline, her very existence had put them in danger. The question was, what was she willing to sacrifice to keep them safe? Luna had been walking the mountain trails around Silverfall for 2 hours, trying to clear her head and make sense of everything that had happened. The morning sun filtered through the pine canopy, and she could hear the distant sounds of the pack going about their daily routines. Children's laughter echoed from the town below, a reminder of what was at stake. She'd found a secluded clearing with a small stream running through it, the perfect place to think. Too perfect, she realized too late. "Dr. Luna Blackwood." The cultured voice behind her made her blood freeze. "You're even more beautiful than your photographs suggested." Luna spun around to find Victor Crane emerging from the tree line, flanked by 6 heavily armed men in tactical gear. He was exactly as he'd appeared in the video, distinguished, well-dressed, with intelligent, dark eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. "How did you get past the pack's defenses?" Luna asked, taking an involuntary step backward toward the stream. "With help from someone you trust," Victor replied smoothly. "You see, Doctor, not everyone in your precious pack is as loyal as they appear." A figure stepped out from behind one of the armed men, and Luna's heart shattered. Finn Reed, Caspian's younger brother, avoided her gaze as he joined Victor's group. "Finn?" Luna's voice cracked with betrayal and disbelief. "Why?" "Because sometimes sacrifice is necessary," Finn said, his voice tight with what might have been regret. "Victor made me an offer I couldn't refuse, my family's safety in exchange for delivering you." "Your family?" Luna stared at him in horror. "Caspian is your family, and he'll live," Victor interjected calmly, "as will the rest of the pack, provided they don't interfere with my work." Young Mr. Reed understood that cooperation would save lives. Luna felt sick. The bonds she'd thought were forming, the sense of belonging she'd experienced for the first time in her life, it had all been an illusion. She was alone again, just as she'd always been. "The tracking device Finn placed on you this morning allowed us to monitor your location," Victor continued, pulling out a tablet that showed her exact coordinates. "A simple adhesive patch pressed to your jacket during your conversation at the lodge. Quite ingenious, really." Luna's hand flew to her jacket, feeling along the fabric until she found the tiny electronic disc near her shoulder blade. She ripped it off and threw it into the stream, but the damage was already done. "There's no need for dramatics, Doctor. I'm not here to hurt you." Victor's smile was cold and calculating. "I'm here to offer you the opportunity of a lifetime, the chance to advance human evolution beyond anything we've ever imagined." "By experimenting on innocent people," Luna spat, backing further toward the stream. By unlocking the potential that already exists within our species, Victor corrected. Do you have any idea what you are, Luna, what you represent? Despite her fear and anger, Luna found herself listening. The scientist in her, the part that had driven her to become a veterinarian, was curious despite everything. You're descended from one of the original hybrid bloodlines, Victor explained, his eyes gleaming with fanatic enthusiasm. Centuries ago, there were humans who bonded with shapeshifters, who carried their children and passed on diluted versions of their abilities. Most of those bloodlines have been lost to time, but yours is pure, undiluted. You have the potential to bridge two species. I don't care about your theories, Luna said, but her voice lacked conviction. The healing abilities she'd discovered, the strange connection she felt to Caspian and his pack, suddenly it all started to make a terrible kind of sense. Don't you? Victor stepped closer, his voice taking on a hypnotic quality. Haven't you always felt different, Luna? Haven't you always known you were meant for something more than treating sick cats and dogs in a small town? Luna's hands began to shake. She had felt different, had always been drawn to injured animals with an intensity that went beyond professional interest. And last night, when she'd been treating Kane, she'd felt power flowing through her fingers that she'd never experienced before. What I felt was compassion, she said firmly, something you clearly don't understand. Victor's expression hardened. Compassion is a luxury I can't afford, not when the future of human evolution is at stake. He gestured to his men, who began to advance on Luna with practiced precision. One way or another, Doctor, you're coming with me. The only question is whether you come willingly or unconsciously. Luna turned and ran. She crashed through the underbrush along the stream bank, branches tearing at her clothes and scratching her face. Behind her, she could hear Victor's men in pursuit, their heavy boots crushing vegetation as they gave chase. Don't let her reach the town, Victor's voice carried clearly through the forest. Use the tranquilizers if necessary, but I want her alive and unharmed. Luna's lungs burned as she ran, her veterinary training having done nothing to prepare her for this kind of physical exertion. She could hear her pursuers gaining ground, their tactical advantages overwhelming her desperate flight. A dart whistled past her ear and embedded itself in a pine tree, its needle gleaming with whatever chemical cocktail Victor wanted to pump into her system. Luna veered left, trying to use the dense forest to break their line of sight, but another dart caught her in the shoulder. The world immediately began to feel unstable, colors bleeding together as whatever drug they'd used began to take effect. Luna stumbled, her coordination failing as the tranquilizer spread through her system. Got her, one of the tactical team reported through his radio. Target is down. As Luna's vision blurred and her legs gave out beneath her, she felt a surge of rage unlike anything she'd ever experienced. These people had threatened her new family, had used her trust against her, and now they wanted to reduce her to nothing more than a laboratory specimen. The anger burned through the tranquilizer's effects like fire through gasoline. Luna's hands began to glow with a soft, silvery light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The forest around her responded to the power emanating from her body. Flowers bloomed instantly along the stream bank. Damaged trees began to heal their scarred bark, and every injured creature within a 100-yard radius felt their pain disappear. What the hell? One of Victor's men began, but his words were cut off as Luna rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with silver fire. The tranquilizer dart fell from her shoulder, the wound sealing itself as if it had never existed. The power flowing through her was intoxicating, overwhelming, and completely beyond her control. Magnificent, Victor breathed, staring at her with the fascination of a scientist observing a breakthrough discovery, even more than I hoped for. Luna raised her hand toward the armed men, not entirely sure what she intended to do, but knowing instinctively that she could protect herself. The silver light intensified, and she felt the life force of every living thing in the forest, connecting to her, flowing through her, amplifying her natural abilities into something that transcended anything purely human or purely supernatural. Then a familiar howl echoed through the mountains, deep, powerful, and filled with rage. It was answered by others, dozens of them, as the Silverfall pack responded to the threat in their territory. Caspian, Luna whispered, and the silver light around her hands flickered as hope and love warred with the power coursing through her system. Victor smiled, but There was calculation behind the expression now. Yes, let him come. I'd very much like to observe the interaction between your abilities and his supernatural nature. Through the trees, Luna could see golden eyes approaching fast, accompanied by the sound of massive paws hitting the ground at inhuman speed. Caspian was coming for her, and he wasn't alone. But as the silver fire continued to build around her hands, Luna realized that Victor might get more of an interaction than any of them were prepared for. Did you see that twist coming? Who do you trust now, Finn? Who betrayed Luna for his family's safety, or Victor, who claims to offer her the chance to fulfill her destiny? The silver fire around Luna's hands pulsed brighter as Caspian burst into the clearing in his wolf form, a massive black creature with golden eyes that blazed with protective fury. Behind him came Kane and a dozen other pack members, their wolves ranging in color from silver to deep brown, all of them focused on the armed men threatening their newfound packmate. Fascinating, Victor murmured, his tablet already recording everything. The bond between you is even stronger than I theorized. Your power responds to his presence. Luna felt it too, the way her abilities seemed to amplify when Caspian was near, as if his supernatural nature was calling to something deep within her hybrid bloodline. The connection between them was more than romantic attraction, it was something fundamental written into their very DNA. Caspian shifted back to human form in a fluid transformation that should have been impossible, his eyes never leaving Victor's face. Let her go, Crane. This is between you and me. On the contrary, Victor replied calmly, seemingly unconcerned by being surrounded by a pack of werewolves. This is about the future of both our species. Dr. Blackwood represents an evolutionary leap that could change everything. I represent myself, Luna said fiercely, the silver light around her hands crackling with increased intensity, and I choose who I want to be. One of Victor's men raised his weapon toward Caspian, but before he could fire, Luna's power lashed out instinctively. Silver energy wrapped around the soldier's gun, and the metal began to dissolve, crumbling to rust and dust in seconds. Victor's eyes lit up with scientific excitement. Molecular acceleration. You're not just healing, you're manipulating matter at the atomic level. Do you understand what this means? Luna stared at her hands in shock. She destroyed the weapon without even meaning to, the power flowing through her beyond anything she could control. What's happening to me? You're becoming what you were always meant to be, Caspian said, moving slowly toward her with his hands raised peacefully. But you don't have to do it alone. The moment his fingers touched hers, Luna felt her chaotic power stabilize. The silver fire didn't disappear, but it became manageable, flowing in harmony with Caspian's supernatural energy instead of fighting against everything around it. The mate bond, Isabella's voice, came from the edge of the clearing as more pack members arrived. It's not just emotional, it's metaphysical. They complete each other's abilities. Victor was taking notes furiously on his tablet, his scientific fascination overriding any concern for his tactical situation. Yes, the hybrid bloodline needs a supernatural anchor to reach full potential. Magnificent. Enough, Caspian growled, his eyes flashing with golden fire. You've seen what you came to see. Now leave our territory. I'm afraid I can't do that, Victor said with genuine regret. What I've witnessed here changes everything. Dr. Blackwood isn't just a healer, she's the key to creating an entirely new species. I simply cannot allow that potential to remain unexplored. He pressed a button on his tablet, and Luna heard the distant sound of helicopters approaching. Through the forest canopy, she could see aircraft circling overhead, their rotors creating downdrafts that bent the treetops. You came prepared, Kane observed grimly. I always come prepared, Victor replied. Those helicopters carry teams equipped with weapons specifically designed to incapacitate shapeshifters. Silver nitrate gas, ultrasonic disruptors, electromagnetic pulse devices. Your pack's abilities won't help you against technology. Luna felt Caspian's hand tighten around hers as the tactical situation became clear. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in an open clearing with nowhere to run. What do you want? She asked Victor directly. Come with me willingly, he said simply. Allow me to study your abilities to understand how the hybrid bloodline functions. In exchange, I'll call off the hunt for your pack. They can live in peace hidden away in their mountain sanctuary. And if I refuse? Victor's expression grew cold. Then I'll take you anyway, and your pack will pay the price for their resistance. The choice is yours, Doctor. Luna looked around the clearing at the faces watching her, Caspian, whose golden eyes blazed with desperate love, Cain, who owed her his life, Isabella, who'd welcomed her like a daughter. Finn stood apart from the group, his face twisted with guilt and shame, but even he was looking at her with hope. These people had become her family in the space of a single night. The belonging she'd always craved, the sense of purpose she'd never found, it was all here, tied to Caspian and his pack. But her power was growing stronger by the minute, fed by her emotions and amplified by the mate bond she shared with Caspian. She could feel it reaching beyond her immediate surroundings, connecting her to every living thing in the forest. Trees, animals, even the microscopic organisms in the soil, all of it pulsed with life force that she could access and channel. I need time to think, Luna said finally. Time is a luxury you don't have, Victor replied, gesturing toward the helicopters that were now hovering directly overhead. My teams are in position. Make your choice now. Luna closed her eyes and reached out with her newfound abilities, feeling the life force of everything around her, the pack members tense and ready to fight. Victor and his soldiers, their hearts beating with adrenaline and calculation. The forest itself, ancient and powerful and protective of those who respected it. And something else, something massive moving through the trees beyond the clearing, drawn by the disturbance in the natural order. Actually, Luna said, opening her eyes and smiling with sudden confidence, I think you're the one who doesn't have time. The ground began to shake, and through the forest came a sound that made everyone freeze, the deep, rumbling call of something much larger than any wolf, ancient, primal, and very, very angry. What is that? One of Victor's men whispered, his weapon wavering as massive shapes moved between the trees. The Guardians, Isabella breathed, her voice filled with awe and terror. Luna, what did you do? I called for help, Luna said simply, her hands still entwined with Caspian's as her power continued to pulse outward from the first children of these mountains. The first massive bear emerged from the tree line, standing nearly 12 feet tall on its hind legs. Behind it came others, wolves the size of small horses, eagles with wingspans that blocked out the sun, creatures that belonged to legend and nightmare. Impossible, Victor whispered, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The guardian spirits are myth, folklore. Everything you thought was myth is real, Caspian said grimly, and you just threatened something they've been protecting for centuries. The helicopters overhead suddenly lost power, their engines sputtering and dying as Luna's abilities interfaced with the guardian spirits and created an electromagnetic field that fried their electronic systems. The aircraft auto-rotated down into emergency landings beyond the clearing, leaving Victor's team stranded. This isn't over, Victor snarled, backing toward his remaining men as the guardian creatures advanced. I know what you are now, Dr. Blackwood. I know your potential. I'll find another way. No, Luna said quietly, her voice carrying new authority. You won't. The silver fire around her hands reached out and touched Victor's tablet, his communication equipment, every piece of technology he'd brought with him. In seconds, it was all reduced to useless scrap metal. The forest will remember you, she told him as the guardian bear stepped closer, its massive presence dwarfing the armed humans, and it will know you as a threat. You won't be able to return here, ever. Victor looked around at the circle of supernatural creatures surrounding his team, his scientific fascination finally giving way to survival instinct. Fall back, he ordered his men. We're leaving. As Victor and his remaining soldiers retreated through the forest under the watchful eyes of the guardian spirits, Luna felt Caspian's arms come around her from behind, his warmth and strength anchoring her as the massive power she'd unleashed slowly settled back into manageable levels. That was incredible, he murmured against her ear, his voice rough with emotion, but also terrifying. Are you all right? Luna leaned back against his chest, feeling safe and protected and more powerful than she'd ever imagined possible. I'm perfect, she said, and meant it. But even as the guardian creatures faded back into the forest and the immediate danger passed, Luna knew this was only the beginning. Victor Crane had seen what she could do, had recorded evidence of abilities that could change the world. He would regroup, find new resources, develop new strategies. The war between humans and shapeshifters was about to escalate beyond anything anyone had imagined. And she was going to be at the center of it all. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation in the forest, and Luna had thrown herself into learning everything she could about her abilities. Under Isabella's guidance, she discovered that her power wasn't just about healing. She could communicate with the natural world itself, encouraging plant growth, purifying water, even influencing the weather patterns around Silverfall. But it was the time spent training with Caspian that truly amazed her. When they worked together, their combined abilities created possibilities neither could achieve alone. She could channel his supernatural strength and speed, while he could access her healing powers and connection to nature. The mate bond between them had evolved beyond simple attraction into something that felt essential, like breathing. "Focus," Caspian murmured, his hands covering hers as they practiced in the lodge's training room. "Feel how our energy flows together." Luna closed her eyes and let herself sink into the connection. Silver and gold light swirled around their joined hands, and she could feel Caspian's wolf spirit as clearly as her own heartbeat. It was intoxicating, the sense of completion she'd never known she was missing. "I love you," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Caspian's hands tightened around hers, and when she opened her eyes, his golden gaze was intense with emotion. "Luna," the lodge's front door exploded inward and chaos erupted. Men in military gear poured through the opening, but these weren't Victor's previous tactical team. These soldiers moved with inhuman speed and coordination, their eyes glowing with an unnatural amber light that wasn't quite wolf, wasn't quite human. "Hybrids," Kane snarled, his form already beginning to shift. Crane did it. He actually created artificial shapeshifters. Luna's blood ran cold as she recognized the implications. Victor hadn't given up after their last encounter. He'd used the data he'd collected about her abilities to create his own version of supernatural soldiers. "Where's my brother?" Caspian demanded, scanning the room for Finn, who'd been working on pack security protocols. His question was answered when Finn stumbled through the doorway, blood streaming down his face and his left arm hanging at an unnatural angle. "It's a trap," he gasped. "Crane's got the whole territory surrounded. These things, they're not like us. They don't feel pain, don't tire, and they're hunting specifically for Luna." One of the hybrid soldiers raised a weapon that Luna had never seen before, some kind of energy projector that hummed with electromagnetic power. When it fired, the beam hit Caspian square in the chest and sent him flying across the room to crash into the stone fireplace. "Caspian!" Luna started toward him, but Isabella caught her arm. "He's using you as bait," the older woman said urgently. "Can't you see? This whole attack is designed to separate you from the pack's protection." Luna looked around the great room where pack members were fighting desperately against Victor's hybrid soldiers. The artificial shapeshifters were stronger and faster than normal humans, but they lacked the instinctual coordination of true werewolves. More importantly, they seemed to be operating on some kind of program directives rather than natural intelligence. "They're not really alive," she realized with horror. "He's turned living people into biological machines." Caspian struggled to his feet, his movements slower than usual. The energy weapon had done something to him, disrupted his supernatural healing in some way. When he tried to shift, his transformation was incomplete, leaving him caught painfully between human and wolf forms. "Silver-based electromagnetic pulse," he ground out through clenched teeth. "It interferes with our cellular structure." More hybrid soldiers were pouring through the windows now, their glowing eyes fixed on Luna with predatory focus. She realized that Isabella was right. This entire assault was designed to force her into a position where she'd have to choose between her own safety and the pack's survival. "Dr. Blackwood," Victor Crane's voice echoed through speakers that the hybrid soldiers were carrying. "I hope you're impressed with my latest creations. They're based entirely on the data I collected during our last encounter. Your blood samples were particularly enlightening." "Blood samples?" Luna stared at the hybrid soldiers with growing horror. "When did you—" "The tranquilizer dart," Finn said grimly, still clutching his injured arm. "It wasn't just meant to sedate you. It was designed to collect tissue samples." Luna felt sick. Victor had been planning this for weeks, using her own biology against the people she'd come to love. The hybrid soldiers weren't just weapons, they were abominations created from her stolen DNA. You have 1 hour, Victor's voice continued through the speakers. Surrender yourself voluntarily and I'll recall my soldiers. Continue to resist and I'll be forced to retrieve you from whatever remains of your pack. One of the hybrids lunged at Cain, moving with unnatural speed. Cain's wolf form was powerful, but when he tried to bite the creature, its skin seemed to harden like armor, deflecting his attack. The hybrid's claws, meanwhile, tore through Cain's fur and flesh like tissue paper. Luna's power flared in response to seeing her friend hurt, silver fire crackling around her hands. But when she tried to heal Cain from across the room, the hybrid soldiers immediately focused on her, their amber eyes blazing brighter. They're designed to track your energy signature, Isabella realized. The more power you use, the more they'll be drawn to you. It was a perfect trap. Luna couldn't help her pack without making herself a target, but she couldn't stand by and watch them be torn apart by creatures created from her own blood. Caspian struggled across the room toward her, his partially shifted form bleeding from multiple wounds. The electromagnetic weapons had done serious damage to his supernatural healing abilities, and Luna could see that he was fighting through tremendous pain just to move. "You have to run," he said when he reached her, his voice distorted by his incomplete transformation. "Get to the Guardian Sanctuary. They can protect you until we figure out how to stop these things." "I'm not leaving you," Luna said fiercely, her hands moving to his wounds. Her healing energy flowed into him, but she could feel the hybrid soldiers' attention sharpening on their location. "Luna, please." Caspian's golden eyes were desperate. "I can't lose you. Not when I just found you." Before she could respond, 3 hybrid soldiers crashed through the lodge's picture window in an explosion of glass and splintered wood. They moved with coordinated precision, surrounding Luna and cutting off her escape routes. "Time's up," one of them said in a voice that was recognizably human, but emotionally flat. "Dr. Blackwood will come with us now." Caspian snarled and launched himself at the nearest hybrid, his incomplete transformation making him clumsy, but his protective instincts overriding everything else. The hybrid caught him mid-leap and slammed him into the wall with bone-crushing force. Luna screamed as she felt Caspian's pain through their mate bond. Her power exploded outward in a wave of silver fire that sent the hybrid soldiers staggering backward, but more were already moving through the lodge, surrounding her from all sides. "Enough." Victor's voice boomed through the speakers. "Dr. Blackwood, your mate is dying. My electromagnetic weapons are designed to prevent supernatural healing. Without immediate medical intervention, he'll be dead within minutes." Luna looked at Caspian, who was lying motionless against the wall, blood pooling beneath him. Through their bond, she could feel his life force flickering like a candle in the wind. "But I'm prepared to offer him treatment." Victor continued smoothly. "My mobile medical facility is equipped with technology that can counteract the electromagnetic damage. All you have to do is come with me willingly." Luna felt the trap closing around her like a vise. Every choice led to the same outcome. Victor Crane would get what he wanted, and the people she loved would pay the price for her resistance. Unless she stopped playing by his rules entirely. "I'll come with you," Luna said, loudly enough for Victor's speakers to pick up. "But I want to see him treated first. I want proof that Caspian will survive." "Acceptable," Victor replied. "My medical team is standing by." Luna knelt beside Caspian, placing her hands on his chest and letting her healing energy flow into him. It wasn't enough to counteract the electromagnetic damage, but it would keep him stable for a little while longer. "I'm sorry," she whispered, pressing her lips to his forehead, "but I know what I have to do now." As Victor's hybrid soldiers moved to escort her from the lodge, Luna was already reaching out with her power, connecting to every living thing within a 50-mile radius. Trees, animals, insects, bacteria, all of it part of a vast network of life that she could access and influence. Victor Crane thought he understood her abilities, thought he could control and exploit them, but he'd made one crucial miscalculation. Luna wasn't just connected to the natural world, she was becoming something the world had never seen before, and she was about to show him exactly what that meant. Victor's mobile command center was a marvel of military engineering, a massive vehicle that looked like a cross between a research laboratory and an armored personnel carrier. Luna sat in the medical bay watching Victor's technicians work on Caspian, who was unconscious and hooked up to machines that hummed with electromagnetic energy. Fascinating, Victor murmured, studying readouts on his tablet. The electromagnetic disruption has created a feedback loop in his cellular regeneration. Without intervention, his body will literally tear itself apart trying to heal. Fix it, Luna said coldly, her hands clenched in her lap to hide the silver fire that was building beneath her skin. Oh, I will, Victor assured her. But first, I need to understand exactly how your abilities interface with his supernatural nature. The bond between you is even more remarkable than I theorized. Luna felt Caspian's pain through their mate bond like knives in her chest, but she forced herself to remain still. She needed Victor to believe she was cooperating, at least until she could figure out how to turn the situation to her advantage. The hybrid soldiers you created, she said, trying to keep her voice level. How many people did you kill to make them? Kill? Victor looked genuinely puzzled. I didn't kill anyone, Doctor. Those volunteers knew exactly what they were signing up for. The enhancement process simply optimizes their existing biology. Volunteers? Luna stared at him in horror. You mean people chose to become those things? Military contractors, looking for an edge mostly, a few idealistic scientists who believed in the cause of human advancement. Victor shrugged dismissively. The transformation is irreversible, of course, and it does eliminate certain aspects of their original personalities, but they're far more effective than normal humans. Luna felt sick, but she also felt her power responding to her emotional state, reaching out through the vehicle's metal walls to the forest beyond. She could sense the pack members who were still fighting Victor's forces, could feel their desperation and pain. The process would work even better with your blood. Victor continued, oblivious to the way Luna's eyes were beginning to glow with silver light. Your hybrid genetics could create soldiers with abilities that rival the werewolves themselves. Never, Luna said quietly. We'll see, Victor replied with confident dismissal. Once you understand the full scope of what we could accomplish together, I think you'll change your mind. He gestured to his technicians, who began wheeling Caspian toward what looked like a surgical suite. The electromagnetic reversal procedure should stabilize his condition within the hour. After that, we can discuss your contribution to the future of human evolution. Luna watched them take Caspian away and felt something fundamental shift inside her. The careful control she'd been maintaining over her abilities, the fear of what she might become if she let her power run free, all of it evaporated in the face of seeing the man she loved reduced to a test subject. Actually, she said, standing up from her chair, I don't think we need to wait that long. Victor looked up from his tablet just in time to see Luna's eyes blazing with silver fire. What are you? Luna's power exploded outward, but not in the uncontrolled burst Victor expected. Instead, it flowed through the vehicle systems with surgical precision, interfacing with every electronic component, every computer system, every piece of machinery keeping the mobile lab operational. Impossible, Victor breathed, watching his screens flicker and die. You're manipulating technology directly. That's not biological, that's quantum-level interaction with electromagnetic fields. I told you before, Luna said, her voice echoing with newfound authority. I represent myself, and I choose who I want to be. The mobile lab's power systems began to overload as Luna's abilities reached deeper into the vehicle's infrastructure. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red shadows, and she could hear Victor's technicians shouting as their equipment failed around them. Through the vehicle's walls, Luna felt the forest responding to her call. Every tree within miles was now part of her awareness, every animal her ally. The pack members fighting outside suddenly found their wounds healing, their strength doubled, their supernatural abilities enhanced beyond anything they'd ever experienced. Security teams, converge on the medical bay, Victor shouted into his radio, but Luna's power had already fried the communication systems. They can't hear you, she said calmly, walking toward the surgical suite where Caspian was being held. Just like your hybrid soldiers can't respond to your commands anymore. Victor's artificial shapeshifters had been controlled through technological implants that interfaced with their modified brain chemistry, but Luna's electromagnetic manipulation had severed those connections, leaving the hybrids confused and directionless. In the surgical suite, Luna found Caspian still unconscious but breathing steadily. The machines monitoring his vital signs were dark, their systems fried by her power surge, but she could feel through their mate bond that his condition was stabilizing. "What are you?" Victor demanded, following her into the surgery with a pistol in his shaking hands. Luna turned to face him, and the silver fire around her hands pulsed brighter. "I'm what happens when evolution doesn't wait for permission." She reached out with her abilities, not to hurt Victor, but to understand him. His life force was there, as clear to her supernatural senses as anyone else's, but it was wrong somehow. Twisted by years of obsession and scientific hubris into something barely recognizable as human. "You're dying," she realized with sudden clarity. That's what this is really about. Some kind of genetic disorder, accelerated aging. You think werewolf DNA can save you. Victor's face went white. "How could you possibly?" "'Cause I can see everything now," Luna said softly. "The way life force flows, the way it connects all living things, and yours is fading fast." She could heal him. The knowledge came to her with absolute certainty. Her abilities were strong enough now to repair whatever was killing him, to restore his genetic structure to perfect health. All she had to do was reach out and touch him. Instead, she turned back to Caspian. "You're gonna let me die?" Victor asked, his voice cracking with desperate fear. "I'm gonna let you choose," Luna replied, placing her hands on Caspian's chest. Her healing energy flowed into him, repairing the electromagnetic damage and restoring his supernatural healing abilities. "You can keep trying to control evolution through technology and violence, or you can accept that some things are meant to develop naturally in their own time." Caspian's eyes opened, golden and alert, and Luna felt their mate bond snap back to full strength. The relief that flooded through her was so intense it made her knees weak. "Luna," he said, sitting up and pulling her into his arms. "Are you all right? I felt you change, felt your power." "I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be," she said, leaning into his embrace. Around them, the mobile laboratory continued to shut down as Luna's abilities interfaced with every system Victor had built. Through the walls, she could sense the hybrid soldiers standing motionless and confused, their artificial programming disrupted beyond repair. "This isn't over," Victor snarled, raising his pistol toward Luna and Caspian. Before he could fire, Kane burst through the surgical suite's doors in his wolf form, followed by Isabella and a dozen other pack members. The hybrid soldiers outside had apparently stopped fighting entirely, leaving Victor's normal human security teams helpless against werewolves operating at peak supernatural ability. "Actually," Kane said, shifting back to human form, "I think it is." Victor looked around at the pack members surrounding him, then at Luna, whose silver fire was now bright enough to illuminate the entire room. "You have no idea what you've unleashed," he said quietly. "There are others like me, other researchers who understand the implications of what you represent. This is just the beginning. Then we'll be ready for them," Caspian said, his arm tightening protectively around Luna. Luna felt a moment of doubt. Victor was right that she'd changed, that her abilities had evolved beyond anything purely human or purely supernatural. She was something new, something unprecedented, and that came with responsibilities she was only beginning to understand. But looking at the faces of the pack members who'd risked everything to save her, feeling the strength of the mate bond connecting her to Caspian, Luna realized she wasn't facing this new future alone. "Take him into custody," she told Kane, "and destroy this laboratory, all of it. I don't want any of his research surviving to threaten other families." As her silver fire reached out to systematically dismantle every piece of technology Victor had used to create his abominations, Luna felt a deep satisfaction. She'd found her purpose at last, not just healing individual patients, but protecting the balance between the supernatural and human worlds. Victor Crane had been right about one thing: she was the key to evolution. But evolution, she was learning, was about growth and adaptation, not control and domination. And she intended to make sure it stayed that way. 6 months later, Luna stood on the wraparound porch of the home she now shared with Caspian, watching the sunrise paint the peaks around Silverfall in shades of gold and rose. Her hands rested on the gentle curve of her belly, where new life was growing, a child who would carry both human and werewolf heritage, the next generation of the evolutionary bridge she represented. "You're up early," Caspian said, emerging from the house with 2 cups of coffee. His hair was tousled from sleep, and he wore nothing but flannel pajama pants that hung low on his hips. Even after all these months together, the sight of him still made her heart race. "She's active in the mornings," Luna said, accepting the coffee gratefully and leaning into Caspian's warmth as he wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I think she's going to be a handful." "She?" Caspian's voice held a note of delighted surprise. Isabella confirmed it. Luna smiled, remembering the pack healer's examination the day before. "Isabella says she can sense the baby's life force now that she's developed enough. Strong and bright, with abilities that are going to be interesting." Meaning our daughter is going to be even more unique than her mother. Luna said, placing her hands over Caspian's where they rested on her belly. Part human, part werewolf, and something entirely new. "Isabella thinks she'll be able to shift at will from birth, but also have access to healing abilities that surpass anything we've seen." Caspian nuzzled his face into Luna's neck, his breath warm against her skin. "Are you worried?" Luna considered the question seriously. The past 6 months had brought challenges she'd never imagined, learning to control her expanding abilities, helping the pack adapt to having a human Luna who could interface with technology and nature alike, dealing with the ongoing threat from other researchers who'd learned about Victor Crane's discoveries. But they'd also brought joys she'd never dared hope for. A family that loved her unconditionally, a mate whose devotion never wavered, a sense of purpose that went beyond her individual desires to encompass protecting the delicate balance between 2 worlds. "No," she said finally, "I'm excited. Our daughter is going to grow up in a world where she doesn't have to hide what she is, where being different isn't something to be ashamed of." They'd made sure of that. In the months since Victor's capture, Luna had worked with pack leaders across North America to establish new protocols for protecting both humans and shapeshifters. Her unique abilities made her the perfect mediator. She could understand the scientific perspective of human researchers while also having deep ties to the supernatural community. The council meeting went well, Caspian asked, referring to Luna's video conference the previous evening with pack leaders from 12 different territories. "Better than," well, Luna said with satisfaction. "We've got agreements in place with wildlife protection agencies in 6 states now, official cooperation on conservation efforts that will give our people legitimate reasons to be in remote wilderness areas." It was elegant in its simplicity. Werewolf packs were naturally drawn to pristine forest environments, and human conservation groups desperately needed people with supernatural senses and abilities to monitor ecosystem health. The partnerships Luna had negotiated provided protection for shapeshifter territories while advancing environmental science in ways that benefited everyone. And the Crane situation? Luna's expression grew more serious. Victor was being held in a specialized facility designed to contain individuals with knowledge of the supernatural world. But his warnings about other researchers had proven accurate. They'd already intercepted 3 different attempts to infiltrate pack territories by groups seeking to replicate Victor's hybrid soldier program. "Finn's intelligence network is getting stronger," Luna said. Caspian's younger brother had found his redemption in becoming the pack's coordinator for threats from the human world. "We identified 2 more research facilities before they could move beyond the planning stage." "Good," Caspian said grimly. "The sooner we shut down that line of research entirely, the safer everyone will be." Luna turned in his arms to face him, studying the strong lines of his face in the morning light. "Do you ever regret it, the way everything changed that night? When you saved Kane's life and accidentally contacted me instead of the emergency vet clinic?" Caspian's golden eyes crinkled with amusement. "Never. Best wrong number in history. Even though it brought so much danger to your pack?" Caspian cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Luna, you didn't bring danger to us. You brought hope. For the first time in decades, our people don't have to live in constant fear of discovery. You've given us a future where our children can be proud of what they are." He paused, his expression growing more intense. "Besides, you gave me something I thought I'd never find. A mate who challenges me, supports me, and loves me exactly as I am. Someone who's strong enough to stand beside me as an equal partner." "Flatterer," Luna said, but she was smiling as she rose on her toes to kiss him. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper as their mate bond hummed with contentment and love. When they broke apart, Luna could see silver and gold light dancing around their joined hands, a visible manifestation of the connection that had changed both their lives. "So, what's next?" Caspian asked. "Besides raising our supernaturally gifted daughter and maintaining peace between two species?" Luna laughed, the sound carrying across the valley where their pack family was beginning their day. Children's voices echoed from the schoolyard, adults called greetings to each other as they headed to work, and the whole community pulsed with life and contentment. "I got a call yesterday from a research station in Alaska," she said. "They're seeing some unusual wildlife behavior that might indicate an uncontacted shapeshifter community, indigenous legends about raven spirits that can take human form." "Road trip?" Caspian asked with interest. "After the baby's born," Luna agreed. "Isabella says travel will be fine for the first few months, as long as we're careful about temperature regulation." Caspian's smile was warm and proud. Dr. Luna Reed, supernatural mediator and protector of two worlds. "I like the sound of that." Luna blinked, then laughed with delight. "Reed, are you proposing, Caspian Reed?" "I'm stating facts," he said with mock seriousness. "You're my mate, the Luna of my pack, and the mother of my child. As far as I'm concerned, you've been Luna Reed since the moment I first heard your voice on that phone call." "In that case," Luna said, her heart full to overflowing with love and happiness, "Dr. Luna Reed accepts whatever challenges come next, as long as she doesn't have to face them alone." As they stood together on their porch, watching their chosen family begin another day in the sanctuary they'd all helped create, Luna reflected on how much her life had changed. 6 months ago, she'd been a lonely veterinarian in a small town, treating sick animals and going home to an empty house every night. Now she was part of something larger than herself, a community that valued her gifts, a mate who loved her completely, and a future that held infinite possibilities for growth and discovery. Her accidental phone call had led her to a destiny she'd never imagined, but one that felt absolutely right. The baby stirred in her womb, and Luna felt a flutter of supernatural energy that made both her and Caspian gasp with wonder. Their daughter was already reaching out with abilities that transcended anything they'd seen before, seeking connection and comfort from her parents. "Hello, little one," Luna whispered, placing both hands on her belly. "We can't wait to meet you." In the distance, she could hear the sound of wolves calling to each other. In the forest, pack members heading out for their morning patrol, voices raised in harmonious greeting to the new day. The sound no longer frightened her, as it might have 6 months ago. Now it sounded like home, like family, like the future she'd always been meant to find, even when she hadn't known she was looking for it. Did Luna's journey from lonely veterinarian to supernatural protector inspire you? What would you do if a wrong number changed your entire life overnight? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of love, destiny, and the magic that happens when two worlds collide.